Alright, so let's continue. And now we will be looking into Firebase, which is basically a backend as a service. And it basically means that it provides different services and tools for the backend part of your application. And there are more than a dozen different services that it provides, such as Cloud Firestore, which we will be using. And it is basically a NoSQL database. And we will look into that later on, but it also provides different services such as Cloud Functions, which allows us to kind of run backend code onto the server, and also like cloud storage to like upload media files, images, videos and stuff, authentication to authenticate users. And for now, like for this particular app, we will be working only with the Cloud Firestore, but make sure to hit subscribe and the bell icon, because in the future I will be releasing few more projects that cover way more than Cloud Firestore. And for now, let's get started. So you can click on the get started button, which will redirect you to the console, and you need to create or you need to add a new project. So let's do that. Let's name our project and we will name it as job listing. Yep. And let's continue. Over here you can kind of enable the analytics, but we don't really want to do that for now. Let's create the project, and it's going to take a while. Alright then, so it is done. So let's click on the continue, and over here like we are in the project. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to add this project, like we need to link this project that we have in the Firebase in our application, and you can choose the application that you want to integrate into. And for now, like we are working with the React, so let's go with the web one, and basically ask you for a nickname and like for the application, and you can do this, like you can have the same one such as job listing. Also set up a Firebase hosting, and we don't really need to do that for now, and we can do that later on for sure. Let's just click on register app, and it is giving us back some config and all. So what we will do is like let's copy this stuff like within the script, the next script, which carries the different API keys and also the initialize. And let's do one thing, let's copy it for now and go back to our application, the one that we are working on, and within the source let's create a new folder called Firebase, and within it let's create a file called config, and let's create it. Okay, so let's just paste what we have over here. Now firstly we need to import the Firebase package. Now if we check the package.json, you can see that we are also installing the Firebase package, and we need to use it in order to kind of use the configuration to connect to the Firebase project. And let's import it, and let's do app from Firebase. Now the thing is, like as we just saw, that Firebase contains a dozen of different services, and you do not really need to import all these services at once. Like as I told you that we will only be working with Cloud Firestore, and that's what we will be doing. For now, let's just import app within the Firebase package, and we are naming it as app. And also like just below it, let's import Firestore specifically, and that is by going not this Firestore. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to initialize our Firebase project or like Firebase application, and let's use const Firebase. And now we need to initialize our app, and as we are like importing the Firebase app, like naming it as app over here, and that's what we will be using for the initialization purposes. So we are using the initialize app function that takes in the configuration, and this is basically the configuration that allows us to connect to our Firebase project. So we have the Firebase variable over here, and we also need to instantiate the Firestore so that we can connect with our database. So const Firestore, and we will be using this Firebase right now because we have already initialized the app, and we can refer to it, and Firebase Firestore. So let's do that, and now let's just export all this so that we can use it like in our application file. So let's export the Firebase as well as Firestore, and let's also export this app like which kind of has the Firebase app, and let's do it over here. And all right, now let's get back to the Firebase console, and over here let's click on the Cloud Firestore. So like if you run it for the first time, you'll have to create the database, and let's create the database, the Cloud Firestore, and click on the start mode, the test mode basically, so that we do not have to. So that basically allows us to work with the database without the need of allowing only authenticated users. Now let's do that for now, and you can have the Firestore location anyway, but you cannot change it after this, so make sure to pick wisely. And it's basically creating the Cloud Firestore database. And in the meantime, let me just go back with this one, because I think you might not be able to understand what's going on. The first thing is we are importing the app from the Firebase app. We can do it the other way, we can import the Firebase as well, but in such way, in this manner, we are importing all the services that the Firebase package contains, and we do not really want that, because as you can see that we are only working with Firebase and we are importing it separately. So this app that we are importing from the Firebase, the package, we are using it to initialize the Firebase project, and we are passing the configuration that we got via after when we actually created the Firebase project, and we are passing it over here, and it is returning back the Firebase instance, which we can use to kind of communicate with our database. So over here we are using it and initializing the Firestore as well, so that we can use this instance to communicate with the Firestore database. Now let's just save it for now. Okay, so the Cloud Firestore has been set up. So the way this works is, the Cloud Firestore, it works in a way that it has a collection, and that collection has documents. Now it basically follows the same concept of NoSQL. Now if you have worked with MySQL or the SQL database such as MySQL or Postgres, so in that we have tables, but in the NoSQL, kind of it is pretty much the name speaks for itself, that it does not have tables, but instead it has collections and documents. So let's create a collection of of jobs, and that collection, the jobs collection, will actually be having the individual jobs as document. So let's do that. And now we need to figure out the document ID, and that can be kind of random. And this is basically the object that we are working with. So let's just use the same stuff that we have in the dummy data. And over here, the ID, this particular ID, we will use the same document ID, and we will get to that later on. But for now, let's just copy the rest of the stuff, such as posted on, and it is a timestamp, and it can be anything for now. And we are just creating one dummy document so that we have something to work with, we can fetch this one in our application. And let's just have the other one of title, and that is this front-end developer for now. Other field of type, and that type is full-time. And then we have remote of the location of the value of remote, and then we have company name with the value of Google, and then the company URL, and we have just basically the Google URL. And now we have to kind of implement the skills. So let's do that. Skills, it's gonna be an array, and we have these values for now. So it's JavaScript, the other one is a React, and the last one, let's have it Vue. And the last property is the job link, basically the link to which we will kind of redirect the user, and we have this link for now. Alright, so if we save it right now, it will create the jobs collection, and within it we have a document, and that document contains the information regarding an individual job. So that's great. Now what we need to do is, let's import this in our application. Instead of we are using the dummy data, and now it's about to get fun, we will actually be importing and fetching data from the database itself. So let's do that.